brain is always just kind of laying knowns down to stay safe. And so we default to that all the time. That's great when you're executing in three-dimensional reality, but when you're trying to create something unknown and you keep going to forecasting and predicting the future, you don't leave a whole lot of room for the unknown. So,
hello and welcome to the Pacific Channel, where you learn how to be, do, and have whatever you want through the power of the law of attraction, meditation, and more. I'm your host, Steve Doherty. Have you ever wanted to grow your brain through the power of meditation? Or have you ever wondered why, if you want something really badly, it won't come, but if you want something that doesn't really matter, it comes easily? Watch this video to learn how to grow your brain through meditation and learn to have the proper attitude so that you can manifest anything you want. In this audio clip of Dr. Hamil and Dr. Joe Dispenza, they first start talking about a guy who volunteered to be in their experiment. This guy didn't know anything about Dr. Joe's work, anything about the meditation work, or anything about energy healing work or healing at all. So they placed him near Dr. Joe's group of meditators while they meditated, and they recorded all of his biodata. After the experiment, this guy off the street said that he freaked out because it felt like his brain had left his body and was floating around the room, but he couldn't get back into his body. Dr. Joe explained in another video that what he experienced was what advanced meditators experience, that feeling of total detachment from your body. The point is that the meditators near this guy affected his vibration. He experienced what they were experiencing. In other words, we can easily be affected by the energy of others, right? This is why early on in this audio clip, you'll hear Dr. Joe say, "So you got to hang out with the right people." Your friends, coworkers, family, or whoever can and will affect your energy. However, what they don't say, but I think Dr. Joe would agree with, is that you can take control of your thoughts and overcome anything external and outside of you, but it takes focus and willpower. Next, they will talk about studies that they did in San Diego on 20 subjects, 10 of them being advanced meditators and 10 novice meditators. One of the things that Dr. Hamil discovers is that advanced meditators grow a certain part of their brain. Their neurons get bigger. They see more mass in a certain part of the brain. Now they are wondering what it means, and it needs further analysis. Dr. Joe will then go on and explain what he thinks is going on. He'll talk about how he thinks it's about the mind being present. The normal default mode for all of us is about trying to anticipate the future based on the past. So the point is that the more that you meditate, then the more that you can condition your brain and body to be in the present moment. You won't feel negative thoughts about the past, and you won't be worried about the future. You'll learn how to live in the here and now, and that is where all your power is. Let's listen to Dr. Hamil and Dr. Joe discuss this now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a living random event generator that we just tested, right? I mean, the collective is able to influence something that random thought that he would normally have in this setting. And of course, I have his blood, so I'll be able to tell if there was an upgrade in his biology as well during this experience, which would be amazing to see.
I think it's an important thing to say. You got to hang out with the right people too.
Yeah. No, I know. Your friends are in what you are. Right?
Well, listen, I know that we've gone a little bit too long, but I really think it'd be really great if we keep going. And if we run out of time for questions, I think it's good for the community to hear some of this. One of the things that you and I and the rest of the scientific team had an opportunity to be exposed to before the event in Orlando was some of the latest brain science from the fMRI studies that we did in San Diego on 20 subjects, 10 advanced meditators and 10 novice meditators, and we got a very, very explicit explanation of just some of the preliminary data that our neuroscientists discovered, and I just thought maybe we would have a little conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean that was, it was opportunistic because we were in San Diego and we had access to this. So we put 20 people in the fMRI one weekend and then the same people the weekend after. One of the things we were really after was what happens during this intensive week where they have these mystical type experiences. And so we also had them do these mystical surveys of things they saw, visions, those sorts of things. Um, the big thing we noticed that I still can't figure out and how it's happening and what this really means is an experienced meditator relative to a novice individual when they come before the week longs, right? So a brain that's never experienced this and the brain that's experienced this at multiple events and continues to meditate on its own grows a certain part of their neurons that get bigger. In the superior parietal lobule, we see more mass. And so it suggests that this practice increases a region of the brain that's involved in the default mode network, this idea of how you behave and what you do and your pattern, right, is there. And a specific region is augmented in these experienced meditators. What that means, who knows? Are we seeing metabolites and exosomes and factors coming out of this region when an experienced meditator elevates their emotional state? That's going to be a future question that we're going to ask. That's going to be amazing.
Well, let me just jump in there real quick, Hemel, just really quickly. First of all, many of us have been, many of us heard that you don't really grow neurons in your brain. Like that's just, you're born with a certain number of neurons. You drink too much tequila, and they go away, and you can make more connections, but the growth, maybe you could find it in the hippocampus or certain areas. And now, there's been some studies done in meditation that shows that there's cortical thickening in certain areas, but the gray matter changes take place in 60 to 90 days, right? And so here we're doing an fMRI before the event, and 7 days later, we're looking at the fMRI at the end of 7 days, and you just see this kind of just sprouting of volume that's taking place in that particular area of the brain that's responsible for, in my mind, being present. And the default mode is just kind of when you always try to anticipate the future based on the past, so we do that all the time where we just kind of go, okay, what's going to happen next? How long is he going to talk? When's this going to end? What am I going to do? How long is this going to go? We do that, or I got to go here, I got to go there. What am I doing at 5 o'clock? I got to go watch this later tonight. Your brain is always just kind of laying knowns down to stay safe. And so we default to that all the time. That's great when you're executing in three-dimensional reality, but when you're trying to create something unknown and you keep going to forecasting and predicting the future, you don't leave a whole lot of room for the unknown. So it's almost like a muscle. Our ability to catch ourselves from defaulting and going to that future, and I say this all the time, and bringing it back to the present moment, that is the victory. You can't say, I can't meditate. You're saying, I'm learning how to get present. And every one of those times you do that actually shows that there is a restructuring that's taking place in the brain, building the muscle to relax more into the present moment. Now, this is, I can't say that it's conjecture right at this point, but we do see, which I also thought was, maybe you were going to say this, but we see this kind of correlation of what happens. Were you going to talk about 10 minutes before the meditation?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like people are doing this with their eyes open, right? I mean, this was the crazy part of this, is that when in the resting state, we see some of these changes happen, and this default mode network essentially disintegrates. And when Alex was sort of pushed to say, well, what the question that we always ask, so what does this look like, right? How is this similar to whatever you've looked at? And he sort of does a little think pause, and he's like, the only way to describe this is as if they're on psilocybin, right? That they're taking some drug, yet we know they're not, and their brain creates the same environment that a drug would create without that drug. And so this gets me as a pharmacologist very excited about, well, what are these drugs that these people are creating in their mind endogenously themselves when they go into these deep mystical experiences throughout the week? And we've got some ideas about how to attack this, but that's amazing that you can create this through an experience with just your mind.
And I just want to add to that because I think it's so important that when we look at the metabolites and the derivatives of melatonin that are downward causations of change in consciousness that take place, there are chemicals that fit in the same receptor sites as a lot of those hallucinogenics or those chemicals that cause us to have really profound experiences. And if those receptors are there, and we were talking about this, there's a principle called endowment in biology. If you don't use it, you lose it. Why are they still there? Because the body's waiting for that shift in consciousness. So without relying on any substance outside of ourselves, that somehow the nervous system switches on, produces chemicals that causes the brain to look like it's having a very profound experience with psilocybin or some type of strong chemical. I think it's profound. And then we kind of went a little further. In that resting state, the correlation that I thought was so exciting was, and that 10 minutes, we were talking about this at the advanced workshop all week in Orlando, and I could say this now with a little bit more certainty. When you don't expect anything to happen, like if your default mode is switched off 10 minutes before the meditation, and you're not going to say, oh, I really want this mystical experience, I really want this healing, I'm going to try it, that should be all taken care of beforehand. If you're just pausing and you're present and you're just going to follow the instructions, then you make it more about the breath. You make it more about staying present with each move. You make it more about opening your heart a little bit more. You make it about the effort, getting lost in the effort. Okay, this is my meditation. I'm just going to get lost in the whole entire thing. I'm not going to try to make anything happen, force anything to happen. If I'm just in that kind of relaxed and awake state and not defaulting to how long is this going to go? I don't, when's it going to end? I hope I'm doing it right. All that stuff that we do. That Alex said that there was a great direct correlation between the default mode network shut off before the meditation and the probability of that person having a mystical moment was greater, which I think is so important because that's for me personally, and I've been at this a while, when I think I'm too tired or I just don't know if this is the right moment, and I just kind of go at it like I have nothing to lose, I'm just going to do this because I have the time. A lot of times that turns out to be my best experience because I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm just curious and I'm kind of relaxed. And so we want to go a little further down this rabbit hole because there's so much to say about that. And in Orlando, one of the things I did is I told the group, okay, we're going to do this, or take a break. And then I was backstage in the green room. I think Hemmel's back there, and a few of the staff, and I just said, you know what, we're just going to not do that. We're going to go out there and we're going to do something completely different because that's what the data says. We're not going to do this. We're just going to change the meditation. And many people just were like, oh, okay. They had no idea what to expect. And they just followed the instructions. They got into it. And they had a really profound experience. So again, all this information is super exciting for us because it really starts to reinforce some of the things that we're intuitively trying to do in the teaching process. And one of the exciting things for me really is this idea of where the information is actually coming from, right? You study the blood of advanced meditators, you see all these wonderful chemicals that tend to heal the body, and we have certain people that have really wonderful chemicals that looks like they could heal anything. Well, we expose them to all different types of health conditions, cells with all different types of health conditions, from cancer to everything else. The question, of course, is where is that information coming from? I mean, information that you take in a pill is chemical information that's instructing the body and selecting certain pathways. But this information that we're capturing in the blood is not coming because the person is taking anything. They're not intermittent fasting. They're not changing their diet in any way. But the information is readily available as a result of their shift in consciousness. And it begs the question, it must be coming from within us on some level, or better yet, where is it coming from? Because it's not coming from the environment, and it must suggest that the nervous system does make its own pharmacy of chemicals. And again, that's something that we're really excited about exploring.
So what Dr. Joe said here is that your subconscious mind is always trying to stay safe. Its normal default mode is to worry about the future and not live in the present moment. That's okay for 3D reality, but not if you want to change and create a new reality. To become more present, we must practice being more present and see it as a muscle that needs to be exercised frequently. I don't know if you notice this when you meditate, but it happens to me quite often. I'll catch my mind wandering to problems in my life, but I remind myself to be present, to focus either on something specific, like the energy center that Dr. Joe frequently has us focus on, or focus on the broader space outside of my body, in space, as you probably heard him say in his meditations. The point is that our goal as meditators is to get our minds to be more present in the here and now, and that not just while meditating, but also while awake. That's key. Our change must become a part of our personality in our conscious awakened state. Dr. Hamil and Dr. Joe also talked about how the brain testing results show that the brain creates the same environment that a drug would create, but without the drug. Apparently, Dr. Hamil is a pharmacologist, so this information excites him. So, our nervous system can produce chemicals that cause the brain to look like it's having a very profound experience on a drug. Dr. Joe then went on to explain something very important regarding how to have a mystical experience. He said that the best way to go into a meditation, the best way to think and feel 10 minutes before doing your meditation, is to not expect anything from it. In other words, let go of the outcome. Do it for the enjoyment of doing it. Don't do it to manifest anything. Do it for the experience and enjoyment of getting beyond yourself and into that powerful creative place. So if you go into it really wanting that mystical experience too much, or if you go into it really wanting to heal yourself too much, you offer up a resistant energy to the universe. It's a vibration of doubt. It's not a vibration of ease and trust. It's a vibration of disbelief and a feeling of not being worthy. When you have that resistant attitude, you pop right out of being able to stay present. When you want something too much, you're giving off a resistant vibration of worry and doubt that it can happen. And ironically, that's why nothing will manifest, neither the mystical experience nor the healing. As Dr. Joe said, don't get attached to the outcome. It's an ironic thing that when you want something too badly, that you actually stop it from flowing to you, but that's how it works. But when you get lost in the experience and do it for the present moment enjoyment of the experience of connecting to the quantum field of potential, that's when the mystical experience and the healing is more likely to happen. If you like this video, please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you know of anyone who is into meditation and wants to understand the finer points of how to get it to work, please share this video with them. And also, if you feel like commenting about your thoughts about what you do to get meditation to work best for you, please comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.